you. I believe the largest provider of housing finance in the country is Pag-ibig, and to speak a little bit about Pag-ibig, among other things, our next panelist is Professor Toby Monsod of UP.
I'm actually not from Pag-ibig. It just featured. It was featured in the lecture I gave. Basically, I was thinking about whether or not government has really been solving the housing problem, and in my view, the answer was no. And I felt that, well-intentioned, government well-intentioned, but policies were inappropriate. And one of that, a key policy of government has been in housing finance, which is below market loans, mainly provided by Pag-ibig. And so the issue is, well, hasn't that helped? And from my analysis, it really hasn't. Well, for a while it did. In other words, Pag-ibig did lead the market down, lead the way down market. However, at a certain point, I think that it may be competing rather than encouraging private finance in certain markets, right? Because of its rates. So that's one. So in terms of on an efficiency level, the answer would be no, right? It's distorting market rates. On equity argument, on the equity argument, in other words, are low-income people getting more access because of a Pag-ibig? And the answer would again be no, because if you really look at their portfolio, only maybe 10% of their members actually avail of housing loans, and these are not the lowest income, because the lowest income members cannot qualify for the loan. So you have the rest of the membership subsidizing those who get housing loans. What is the impact of that? It is a provident fund. We are all required to give to Pag-ibig whether we like it or not. So the issue is, are we getting the best returns on our savings? And again, my view is no. If you look at their return on their portfolio investment, we may be able to do better if we are allowed to put our money somewhere else. This is something that has to be precisely, debated. What is the benchmark for Pag-ibig if it's a mandated savings organization? So, in terms of does it reach lower income, that's questionable, because the lower income members really are not the ones who get the subsidies. Is it helping to deepen housing finance markets? And I think for a while it did, when it saved the day for housing finance in the late 90s. But now, as my panelist said, there has been a revolution, and private banks are going down market already. Okay, I think that the main thing I have a problem. My main problem with Pag-ibig is because government, the numbers of Pag-ibig are so impressive. Okay, it's a false comfort. It makes government think that okay, we're doing our job, and I think the real job of government at this point has to be focused on not the symptoms of the housing problem, but the causes of unaffordability. And this has to do with supply side bottlenecks, land markets, as you said, transaction costs on the supply side, as well as on the demand side, which is income, right? Low income housing, the problem is low income, right? So, to a certain degree, there is a market that will never and should not yet be part of formal finance, right? That's what happened in the States. Right? They pushed it down market, people who are not yet ready to be homeowners, and look what happened, right? The quality of the mortgages suffered. And same here. So conceptually we can distinguish between a group that with a little help can access formal finance, maybe with upfront subsidies, but there's a segment that cannot yet, and that's where progressive housing comes in, housing microfinance and so forth, as well as tenure issues, helping to secure tenure, and why not, right? So conceptually we can separate the two, and I think that the first thing government should do is to separate the two and not mix up, interventions with with policies that don't quite hit the mark and may stunt both housing finance and housing supply.
Thank you. A nice segue into our next our next panelist. Point of clarification, in the U.S., the push-down market certainly helped lead to the crisis, but a lot of misleading practices along the way as well. Okay.